I have been making movies pretty much all my life, starting in 2009 when I made my first stop-motion movie, a recreation of the reboot of Star Trek that came out that same year. My version was just 11 minutes long, and used a combination of Legos and magnetics, a somewhat lesser-known building set. I made the movie by building the sets, taking a still picture, moving the pieces slightly, taking another still picture, and so on. Then, once I transferred the pictures onto my computer, I compiled them all down to a single playable video file. Most of the pictures that I took I put into the movie as is without any further editing. There were a few sequences in the movie that were impossible to create purely in the camera, due to requiring floating objects in the foreground. So for those pictures, I would open every single picture in Microsoft Paint and edit each one individually, advancing the added foreground item just a little bit in each frame. Working in this manner, the movie took a full year to complete, but it was a lot of fun and I learned a lot through the process. The following year, I started working on another stop-motion movie, this one recreating the classic movie Independence Day. I already knew the basic process from my previous movie, so I wanted to make this one better by incorporating more locations than I had done previously. The vast majority of my previous movie had taken place all in a single location, with only the opening scene and end credits being in different locations. And those were only generic interchangeable space backgrounds. So this time I wanted to create several elaborate sets for the action to take place in. And Independence Day was the perfect movie for that, because it offered the opportunity to create a vast number of sets to destroy. And so that's what I did, building a city, a castle, a college campus, the pyramids, and the White House to destroy. Additionally, I built the set for Area 51, with different sets for the inside and the outside, as well as a set of NASA. On the whole, I don't think that my Independence Day movie turned out quite as well as my Star Trek movie. The additional sets certainly create a spectacle, but the result was a less cohesive whole. Star Trek's single set led to my ability to create the illusion that the whole thing had been filmed in one shot, tying the whole thing together quite nicely. Contrasted to this, the mini-sets of Independence Day turned the movie as a whole into something of a jumbled mess. But still, I am very proud of my two stop-motion movies. The years went by, and I did a few more small film projects, including a parody of the second reboot Star Trek movie, Into Darkness, and starting an ongoing YouTube review series. But my next major milestone in the film world was in 2016 when I made Crowforest the movie, my first feature film. Making Crowforest the movie was so much work that I gave up on the idea of doing a sequel the following year, but I did eventually make Crowforest 2, even if it was a full 4 years later. Crowforest 2 might have come into being a full 4 years after I intended to make it, but it exists now. It's slightly underwhelming, but it does exist. Crowforest the movie, even with all its goofier bits, has a sincerity to it that makes it work fairly well. But Crowforest 2 is a bit of an odd combination of upping the ante from the previous movie and just giving up. Honestly, I don't even know how I did that. That should be impossible. But one thing that both Crowforest the movie and Crowforest 2 have in common is the rather innovative set design. Specifically, the miniature set design. Crowforest the movie included 4 miniature sets built out of Legos and other materials, built to match the larger filming sets. Crowforest 2 had those same sets as well as one additional one built specifically for the movie. All of the miniatures look really cool, but the Crowforest 2 set in particular is really cool. And I thought that it was just such a waste that it was only featured in one movie, and the lesser sequel to a movie that no one saw in the first place at that. And so I decided to write another script around that miniature. And that brings us right up to now. I wrote that script, and now I'm about to start filming it. This is the story of how I made my first proper movie, In the Attic.